Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivara Dari Jaya Girivara Dari Jaya Yasodanandana Jaya Brajajana Ranjana Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunjabi Hari Jaya Kunjabi Hari Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunjabi Hari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivara Dari Jaya Girivara Dari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Bhagavad ki jai. Hare Krishna. Good evening. Welcome to Bhagavad Gita class with Gita Priya. Okay, so today we are reading from chapter 9 entitled The Most Confidential Knowledge from text 16. Yes, Gita. So what is text 16? Let's recite it. Okay, first let's say Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so text 16. Are we going to repeat or how does it? Okay. Aham krato aham yagya swadanam aham asudam mantroham aham aevajam aham agnir aham hutam. Do they do word for word? No. Yes? Okay. Aham, I, krato, Vedic ritual. Aham, I, yagya, smriti, sacrifice. Svada, oblation. Aham, I. Aham, I. Asudam, healing herb. Mantra, transcendental chant. Aham, I. Aham, I. Eva, certainly. I. Ajam, melted butter. Aham, I. Agni, fire. Aham, I. Hutam, offering. So the translation is, but it is I who am the ritual, I the sacrifice, the offering to the ancestors, the healing herb, the transcendental chant. I am the butter and the fire and the offering. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. The Vedic sacrifice known as Jyotish Toma is also Krishna, and he is also the Mahayagya mentioned in the Smriti. The oblations offered to the Pitraloka, or the sacrifice performed to please the Pitraloka, considered as a kind of drug in the form of clarified butter, is also Krishna. The mantras chanted in this connection are also Krishna, and many other commodities made with milk products for offering in the sacrifices are also Krishna. The fire is also Krishna, because fire is one of the 5 material elements, and it is therefore claimed as the separated energy of Krishna. In other words, the Vedic sacrifices recommended in the Karma Kanda division of the Vedas are in total also Krishna. Or in other words, those who are engaged in rendering devotional service unto Krishna are to be understood to have performed all the sacrifices recommended in the Vedas. Okay, let's read this. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnana Jnana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Sha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radha Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, thank you very much for this opportunity to teach myself. Advaita allowed me to give class, and hopefully I can learn from giving class. And I pray that Nrsingadev gives me the ability to say something that is worthy of you all listening here. So I haven't given class in a long time. So it was a real challenge, and especially looking at this verse was very interesting because it's not one of my favorite verses, but it is my favorite chapter. So I tried to find as much nectar about this, to squeeze as much nectar out of it as possible. I have to put my leg down here. Let's hope we can finish quickly. So yeah, this verse, text 16, is a continuation of obviously the previous verses. And what I really like the flow of how Krishna is talking to Arjuna here. You know, he initially, really? It's only us here, no? Small. Yeah, so let me just get to the beginning of this. Yeah, so Krishna is telling us about how to recognize and worship him in his universal form. You know, in the previous verse he talks about, he introduces the aspect of the universal form, and then he starts to get into it in this from verse 16 to verse 19. He gives a little bit of features of the universal form. Just prior to this, he was talking about, you know, like in text 11 and 12, he's talking about the fools who don't recognize him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead when he descends on this earth as a human. And he says that these fools are like naturally attracted to demoniac civilization and atheistic views. And then those who do recognize him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead are chanting his glories. Sadatam kirtayanto mam yatantas chajiravataha. So they're always chanting my glories, always endeavoring with great determination. They're paying obeisances to me. So those are the Mahatmas, those are the devotees. And then Krishna starts talking about the others. He refers to them as Anya in text 15. And these others are not they are not the fools, so they're not the demoniac or atheistic people, they're not the Mahatmas. These are these other categories of people. And of the three categories, he divides them. And he says of the lowest of these three is the Ekadvenas, the ones who are worshipping themselves as God. So they see themselves as God and they are worshipping themselves basically. But Prabhupada also says that there's some positive aspect to this, is that they are seeing themselves as eternal, so that their soul, they're not material, not basing on the material platform, something that's temporary. So one aspect is positive, but still they're the lowest of these others. And then there's the Pritagvena, and these are the ones who are concocting some form of worshipping of Krishna. So they're not worshipping Krishna, but they're worshipping the demigods. And then after that, we have the Vishvato Mukham. So this is all in text 15. And the Vishvato Mukham are the ones that are worshipping the Vishvarupa, the universal form. So this is like the introduction of the universal form, the prelude, so to say, because Krishna only reveals to Arjuna his universal form in chapter 11. So this is like a little taste of the universal form. He talks about it to Arjuna to get him inquisitive enough to ask Krishna to see this form. And yeah, where was I? Sorry. Yeah, so of this universal form, it's actually quite common. I never heard of it until now you see it more commonly online or on social media. These are the pantheistic people. So these people worship like the material items around them. So they worship like the sun, the air, okay, those are not really material items, but they worship nature, and then they also worship things that they have. So they, this attitude of gratitude is good, but they're grateful for having these things, and they worship these items around them, seeing them as an element of God. So Krishna is emphasizing in these four verses, he's trying to show us, or these people, that the essence of these material items, the potency in these items is actually Krishna himself. Like he says here, he's the ritual, the sacrifice, the offering to the ancestors, the healing herb. So all of this potency in these substances is actually Krishna. And then he says, in the next verse, he also says, I am the father of this universe, the mother, the support, the grandsire. I'm the object of knowledge, the purifier, and the syllable Om. I'm the Rig, Sama, and Yajur Vedas. So he's telling us, you don't have to worship all these other things. You can just worship me directly. But if you are, just remember that he's the essence of these elements, so to say. And he's bringing in his true essence, not his true essence, but that he's the absolute truth. It's coming through in these verses. Like this universal form, I was surprised to find people worship it, because, I don't know if you've read it. I'm sure many of you have read chapter 11 and how scary the universal form looks, with many mouths and many hands and blood, and it's just like very terrifying. Even Arjun was like quite overwhelmed when he saw this form of Krishna. But people worship it, and it's quite difficult to have a relationship with a universal form. It's like you can't dress it, you can't have a relationship with it. It's not like Krishna, where you can see him, you can dress him, you can bathe him, you can offer him something, you can talk with him. I guess it would be like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something mundane, maybe, like you can't get to know the universal form. Like, what do you like? Eating people. Or, and also the universal form is temporary, it's not ever existing. So when the material existence come to an end, then the universal form will also come to an end. So I was thinking of something mundane, like what I could compare it to. It would be like, because we're so personalized, and Krishna is trying to personalize these aspects of the universal form. And so I was thinking about something like the postman or the delivery man, the guy who delivers all our stuff to the door. He comes here, he just delivers stuff, or he takes some packages away, and we just see him, and we don't really know him. But actually, he's got a name, he's got a family, he's got a whole life of his own other than just being a DHL delivery man, So one day we can ask him what's his name, or ask him where he's from, or build this relationship, because that's what Krishna is trying to teach us here. Is that you have to personalize everything. We can't just have these impersonal, pantheistic views of life, I guess. And as we know, Bhagavad Gita is 18 chapters, and they're subdivided into 3 categories, 6 chapters, like they make a little burger, because I'm hungry. So there's the top layer, the first 6 chapters, and the last 6 chapters, but the middle 6 chapters is like the real nectar or the real juice that's inside here. And of those 6, it's chapter 9 and chapter 10 is like the real nectar. Everything is there, and it's really chapter 9 is really my favorite verse chapter. Sorry. And it's like the cream of the crop. It's called the most confidential knowledge. But also, if you look at chapter 7, it's also very similar. Like there's lots of similarities. Just from I remember from my Bhakti Shastri, I wrote some notes from here. There's like many similar themes in those 2 chapters. So Krishna is also at the beginning telling Arjuna about how to hear from him that we need to be free from envy and we need to have faith. So that's how we can understand the scripture or understand what the message Krishna is saying. So he emphasizes that both in chapter 7 and 9. And so this way he's qualifying Arjun to being to receive this confidential knowledge. And then thereafter we have the theme of the relationship of Krishna and the material nature. Then we have the impersonal knowledge of Krishna contrasted with the devotees. And finally, in the section that we're dealing with now is Krishna's potency manifested within matter, and this is his universal form. Further on, later in the next few verses, he goes on to discuss demigod worship versus worshipping Krishna, and then he goes into impersonalism versus devotees and how to in understanding Krishna. So if there's so many similarities between chapter 7 and chapter 9, why is only chapter 9 called the most confidential knowledge and the other chapter is just entitled Knowledge of the Absolute? Anybody? Since we are a small class. Anybody? Are you listening? Advaita? So I also was wondering, like, why is Krishna sort of repeating himself? But in the purport of the first verse in chapter 9, Srila Prabhupada talks about, he mentions that this chapter deals with matters that is associated with unalloyed pure devotion. So that is? Okay, cool. So just leading up to this chapter, like chapter 8, Krishna is explaining to Arjuna that his devotee is fixed solely upon him, Ananya, and is able to surpass the path of light and darkness. I found this so cool when you read it. It's like, wow, it's something from Star Wars, or maybe I'm just too involved outside. So Krishna is now explaining to Arjuna in this next chapter about how to become an Ananya Bhakta. So that's why it's like the most confidential knowledge. It's talking about unalloyed, pure devotional service. And then I couldn't type anymore, so I had to write. So this unalloyed devotional service, it's how do we get there? Just besides reading this, chapter 9, we look at how we can apply this in our day-to-day lives. I mean, some of us are living in the ashram, and some of us are visiting the ashram. But here we are given the injunction of following sadhana bhakti, and the sadhana bhakti is performed under rules and regulations. Yes, Gita, it's performed under rules and regulations, and we think this is so difficult, because we have to wake up early, we have to chant our rounds, we have to live according to the rules of somebody else under our authority, and we don't have any freedom. We can't sleep when we want to sleep, we can't eat when we want to eat, we can't enjoy when we want to enjoy. We have to follow the rules. And but actually I lived this life for a long time, even though I was a devotee and sleeping when I want to sleep, eating when I want to eat. And I still was a devotee, but then you have a baby. Those of you who don't have a baby don't know this, but you can't eat when you want to eat, and you can't sleep when you want to sleep. You have to live under the rules and regulations of the baby. So now that you're a bhaktas and bhaktin, so if you ever want to become a grihastha and have children, please live under the rules and regulations of Krishna before you have a child, and live under the rules and regulations of the baby. Because real freedom is not living by the senses, Because sleeping when we want to sleep, eating when we want to sleep is being a slave of the senses. I have so many colleagues when I used to work who were addicted to, feeding their senses, like smoking or drinking, and I would ask them, like, can you stop smoking? And they're like, yeah, of course I can stop smoking. I can stop whenever I want, just like that, And but after every patient they would go outside to have a smoke because they just couldn't deal with life, and their senses were so in control of them rather than them being in control. They really couldn't stop, And so that's why when we join the movement and we think, this is just so much effort, like, to just live under somebody else's rules. But if I promise you, if you give this time to Krishna and you dedicate this time in the ashram, give it your all and try to embrace this bhakti and live with, how you say, what's the word? Embrace the bhakti? No. Find the nectar in this difficulty, because anything that starts off good usually always ends up bitter, and anything that starts off bitter always ends up in nectar. It's really, really the secret to this life is that if it's very pleasurable at the beginning, it's likely going to be disaster. And that's why I'm hoping this tapasya with my baby is going to be very pleasurable later in life, because it's quite difficult. It's a real challenge. So just like that, we should try to, embrace this austerity that we have, this opportunity living in the ashram. Actually, I can remember when I was living in the ashram and waking up early and pushing my body into an extent of, like, almost to a point of, like, you out of your body, and you're doing things so quickly when you're in the ashram. You have shower, you put on your dress, you put in tilak, you run in before the conchal comes, and you get in there, and it's like, I kind of like miss this, because there's this routine of, like, living for Krishna, and, like, this sensation that is you can't get if you're too relaxed. When you're too relaxed, then you're living with the senses, but this, like, rush and doing something for Krishna is, like, so is this feeling that I crave, and I can't get it, because obviously now it's like I live for Gita. So there's no, like, spontaneity or anything like this. Okay, I don't want to give a long class. I just want to say that many of us, I was also part of this, is that we live in the ashram and we think, okay, we still want to find our desire, our passion. Have you heard this? I want to find my passion. I don't know if this is a German, also in German, you must find your passion. But the actual definition of passion is suffering. Yes, look it up. I was shocked also when I find your suffering. This is what people are encouraging you to do. Find your suffering and really, really suffer. And it's interesting, it's like when we're so forced to find our passion. So when we find our passion, we'll be really. And when we find our passion, then we'll be really happy and everything will be fine. The grass is greener on the other side, blah, 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 blah. And, but passion actually means to suffer, and I thought my passion was to be a doctor, and really being a doctor was real suffering. It's long hours. I guess it was preparation for having a baby. Long hours, no sleep. Really... Sorry, preparation. But I think maybe Europe will be different. South Africa was really long hours, sometimes 24 hours, 36 hours, no sleep, and just like working. And I was like, this is my passion. And now when I look back, I'm like, yeah, this was my passion. It was my suffering, And And so as devotees, we are trying to get away from this passion. We're trying to have compassion. Compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. And what is compassion? So compassion means to share the suffering. Yeah, who would have thought? Yeah, so when you have compassion, that means you understand their suffering and you actually feel their suffering. So when you see that you want to, go on book distribution, give them some prasadam, chant Hare Krishna with them, or something, whatever you have, you can give, but because you have compassion, and you can only have compassion if you really, truly understand their suffering, without judgment, without looking down on them, because it's very easy coming from a position of, we have so much nectar in Krishna consciousness that we can really feel that we are superior to other people, because we have the philosophy, we have the meditations, we have the prasadam, we have everything, we have the kirtans, but we still have to go out and we have to give it to people because they don't have it, because they are in their passion, and we have to have compassion. We have to give them what we have as well. Otherwise, actually, somebody said to me, I don't know who said this, I don't know. I think it was my Guru Maharaj. He said the true way to really enjoy the bhakti and the devotional service and the relationship with Krishna is to share it with other people. The more you share, the more you get. If you keep it to yourself, then it becomes bitter and you become like really not a fun person to be with. The moment you share it, especially if you have Mahaprasad or something and you give it to somebody, you have so much more inside you when you give it. I don't know. You feel this? Sometimes I don't feel it. I want to keep it for myself. But the moment I give it and I see that smile on that devotee's face, like something that they never had and I had it and I was able to give it to them, and they're so appreciative. And then Krishna is also like so pleased by this, and he's, he also gives you more when he sees you giving something that you already have, something that you really value especially. Not just giving it to Krishna, to give it to other people who probably deserve it more than us. I'm going to end here. If you have any questions, I know it was a short class, but I can't. God, Krishna, what are you doing to her? You have any questions? Okay. Yeah? Okay. God. Deep compassion. So I was listening to, who was it? I can't remember. I think it was Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. And he says the only way to have compassion is by understanding first how much pain we have ourselves, and to know that, like, when Arjun was out on the battlefield with Krishna on the battlefield, he was there was a time, I think, was shooting arrows and at Krishna, Bhishma, yes, Bhishma was like attacking Krishna with arrows, and because he wanted to fight with him, and he was like piercing Krishna's body, and Arjun jumped out of the chariot, and he stood in front of the chariot and to protect Krishna with his arms open, and these arrows were falling on his body and just like hitting him, and he was not scared to die, he was not scared to lose his life, because he had so much love for Krishna. So if you can see that Krishna is within every entity, living entity, then you can really have compassion for them, because you want them to come back to Krishna. Imagine like you want to protect Krishna, you wanna serve Krishna, and the best way to serve Krishna is to bring the fallen conditioned souls back to him. Because if he doesn't, it's like a child lost from their father, and they haven't seen their father for so long. They don't know they're in so much pain, and they've forgotten, they're mentally ill or something. And you want to bring them back to their father. As soon as they come back, then Krishna will take charge, and they will feel happy again, And so this is our duty, is to try and get people back to Krishna so that he can look after them, to show them that, hey, this is your father. Maybe they forgot. Maybe they have dementia. What's the other illness? Dementia, amnesia. And they've forgotten their true selves and they've forgotten their father. So you go there and you say, hey, your father, he's rich, he's got everything. Why are you standing on the streets here? You have nothing. Let me take you home, take you back to Krishna. So the only way is to have love for the fallen conditioned souls, to understand that they belong to Krishna, and then you have to bring them back. Yeah. You have a question?
I was going to have a comment.
Okay.
Thank you for the last words about giving something that you value to others, because I was planning on giving something I very value to another devotee today, and I was like, shall I give it or shall I not give it? Because I also like it.
Now you have to give it now. Okay, thank you.
Can I ask also a question?
Yeah, sure. I hope I can answer.
So this universal form it's I'm thinking of why it's scary instead of neutral, because every kind of face and every kind of form of Krishna from every time all together, time, everything. Why does it become scary?
I think it's overwhelming. I mean, if you have to see something that is that you've never seen before. Have you seen a dead person before? You have to think about that. So it was obviously not very memorable. But imagine now, how Krishna who Sanjay describes it. It's like these bodies are flying into his mouth and they're stuck on his teeth, and he's got all these arms, and it's like, it's not a normal sight. Even Mother Yasoda saw this aspect of the universal form when Krishna was eating dirt, and then she was like, hey, I need to check your mouth, and then she opened his mouth and she saw all these planets and all these demigods and the stars and the universe and many universes, and it was just vast and vast and vast, all in her little baby's mouth. And then she saw herself breastfeeding Krishna. Yeah, and she thought she was bewitched or something, She was overwhelmed. It's not something normal, and she thought maybe she's ill, maybe somebody is bewitching Krishna, and she almost fainted. And then Krishna immediately realized that she's, she can't handle it, and then just made her forget. Yeah.
In the case of Mother Yashoda, it's more overwhelming than scary, I guess. But in Arjuna's case, it's really scary.
Yeah, and he's a warrior, He's a Kshatriya. Imagine if he was scared. How would we? That's why not everybody can see it, I don't know. I think it's. I don't think you can be neutral with it, because. Yeah, what do you think? Why is it scary? Why was Arjuna scared? I think because he used to see Krishna as his friend, as a neutral, and then all of a sudden he's seeing this magnanimous form that is beyond him, and he's like, whoa, oh my gosh, Krishna is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yes, I know it, but I prefer you in this other form. And what is this now? I've been so, I've been mistreating you, of lying on your lap, playing with you, not showing you the proper respect. And so, but Krishna, so I think that's probably why he got just scared or overwhelmed. I mean, maybe not really scared.
It is true, because it's a question in Bhakti Shastra also, I remember.
Yeah.
And why is Arjuna afraid? And mainly because, a minute ago Krishna was his friend, and then afterwards he saw this universal form. So,
Yeah.
Arjuna was kind of regretting all this
Familiarity with Krishna. Yeah. So you heard what he said? You heard what he said?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess that's probably You have a question?
Yes.
Oh, Krishna.
Related to the 11th chapter, because the burger, the middle part is Bhakti, middle 6 chapters. So how you would relate the 11th chapter to Bhakti?
Why you have to ask these difficult questions? Okay, the 11th chapter, verse of
It's a good question.
It's nice to think about it. So
yes, I'm thinking, so I will give you my version of the answer. I remember actually, you like the 11th chapter actually. Yeah, I don't know why, I can't remember, you told me and now I forget. I don't know, you want to answer? I can't think off my feet. I don't know why you like this chapter. It's so many verses as well.
because it's actually Krishna gives Arjuna the chance. He shows him everything, and he tells him, you fight for me, but if you don't fight, I will still kill them all. So
Yeah, because they were already dead, no?
They're already dead. So
Yeah.
he gives, the same is for us. Krishna gives us the opportunity. Join, chant Hare Krishna, dispute books.
Or die anyway.
No, I will continue anyway with my mission, but you can be part of it.
Yes, this
This
is
is
true.
Bhakti, actually, that we can. Krishna gives us
The opportunity to,
to serve him.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Okay, yeah.
So I ask the question now myself, why is the 11th chapter related to Bhakti? Because it makes no sense somehow. But it does, because Krishna shows us from the universal form, and he shows that hey, everything is already written, but you work for me, do it for me.
Yeah, and chapter 11 is like my least favorite. Chapter 11 is like my least favorite.
Not my favorite, but it's nice.
My least favorite, yeah. Anyway. Okay, thank you so much for listening. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Bhagavad Gita ki. Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai. You were supposed to read.